Hello, hi, good afternoon. This is Shola Jani, School of Consulting. Starting the Consulting Toolkit Learning Series. We're starting the Consulting Toolkit Learning Series. Basically trying to showcase how to use consulting tools, models, framework, and basically trying to showcase how this can be used to enhance service delivery for our clients as consultants. I'm going to be sharing my screen, going there right now. So yeah, that's it, the Consulting Toolkit Learning Series. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this training? The business landscape is changing. Gone are the days when you sit back as a consultant and you can expect consulting briefs to drop on your table. So the landscape is changing. You have to create the opportunity. You have to create the business. You have to source out the business, as it were, with your existing clients and new clients. One of the things we teach at the School of Consulting is the clients does not know fully what they need, or put it in a different way. It's not all the time that the clients are aware of their business needs. And this is where we come in as consultants to be able to identify needs that will enhance the objective of our client's business. Secondly, once you start thinking ahead of your clients, you're looking for how can I add value to the business my client is involved in. You go from what I call the supplier thinking to the partner thinking or partnership thinking. You switch into a partnership mode. Not consciously, but that's effectively what you're doing when you're constantly thinking, how can I enhance my client's business? So you're switching, or you switch to the partnership mode, and that tends to help both yourself and your clients. I mentioned earlier, it's not all the time that the client knows what they need. So you as a consultant may preempt a client. I gave the example once. I had a client that had different adverts on the diverse mediums that we have on social media. She was on Twitter, she was on Facebook, she was on Instagram, she was on YouTube, she was on Google. And I asked her a question. Ma, of all these platforms, have you been able to determine the most effective platform? And she said no. And I suggested to her that what we could do is carry out a survey to determine the most effective platform. And the reason why we want to do that is so that you can concentrate your dollar spend or your investment spend on what is working and perhaps reduce expenditure on what is not working for you. But you can't do that without carrying out this survey. So, well, carry on and do that. And that's how we got a brief to carry out this assignment. So consultants must always be one step ahead of their clients, looking for ways to help the clients, looking for ways to add value to the client's business, move from being a supplier to a partner. Before I go on, I'd like to say we have over 40 courses that's looking at different tools. And we have a promotion that might interest you. Contact us at the School of Consulting if you want to know more about this. So we have 10 courses for only $200. 10 short courses for only $200, focusing mainly on consulting tools, models, and framework. Right, so let's get into it. The capability gap assessment, what it is? It is a structured framework for assessing the capabilities that exist within an organization. So why do we do that? Number one, let's examine our capability. Then number two, are we maximizing our capability? Number three, if we're not maximizing our capability, there is a gap. How do we fill that gap? So essentially, we're looking at those three things. Identify our capabilities. How well are we maximizing those capabilities? And if we are not, how do we close the gap? How do we maximize those capabilities? So it's a structured framework for analyzing what capabilities exist within an organization. And beyond that, presenting a solution to close the gap, presenting a solution to help the client maximize their capability. So as a consultant, when can we use this? We can use it when we're making a presentation to a client, to present to stakeholders, to basically show in graphical terms the gap in their capabilities, and potentially what they could do to close those gaps. And when can we use this? We can use this in different spheres, depends on your client's business. You can use it to assess competencies when you're looking at people in an organization. What are the skills that are required? Where are we? And if we don't have those skills, how do we get those skills? So likewise with processes, how well or how good are our business processes? What are the gaps in our business processes? And how can we close those gaps? So those are the examples. For instance, you could have a client and you're saying a client, what are your technological capabilities? And where are you in terms of cloud storage? And if you need cloud storage, by the way. And so you can assess where they are with a view to closing that gap. And this is a tool that you can find very useful. So I'm going to go to show you what this looks like. I'm changing my screen, so please bear with me. This is what this template looks like, what you can use. So this is a basic template that we can use to basically assess capability. And beyond assessing capability, you want to close that gap. You want to close that capability gap that you have identified. So basically, there are 5 stages. I just say 5 or 6, and I'll clarify that in a minute. Now, the first thing is you want to determine the dimensions that you want to measure. That's the very first thing you want to do. What dimensions of this company are we measuring? I mean, we've got brands, services, pricing, network, offering. There's no fixed dimension that you may use, but it depends on the business and what you're measuring. For instance, you may want to base your dimensions on departments, say marketing, sales, human resources, customer service, operations, production. So you may want to base your departments on your dimensions on departments. So we say marketing, for example. What must we have to be a fully functional and effective marketing department? You list that here. And then you carry out an appraisal of the marketing department. Where are they? You score them or you rate them. Say, for instance, I mean, for argument's sake, you need 10 people in the marketing department and you only have 4. The next thing to do is to rate them on the scale of high, medium, low in terms of the current capacity. So the current capacity is low. If it's 4, if it's 2, 3 is low. Anything below 5. If it's 5, is medium. If their current capacity is 7, 8, then that is a high. Okay, so you look at the required capacity, you look at the existing capacity, and then you define or you give a score to that capacity relative to each other. So where the score and the dimension is high, then the difference is low. But where, for instance, as I mentioned, you need 10 people, you only have 2, then the organizational capacity, you rate it. Is the organizational capacity high or is it low? You rate it there. And then next step is to define potential strategies to close that gap or to close the gap. I dare say, when I said there are 6 columns, you could add one more column, which is impact analysis. So before potential strategies, you could add impact analysis, which is simply an analysis of the impact of the deficiency in marketing. So you state the impact on the business. You create a sense of urgency for the client that, look, because of the low score, because of the low capacity, this is the likely impact on your business. In fact, this creates a sense of urgency and a call for action beyond just itemizing potential strategies. Now, for a consultant, when you're presenting this to a client, you don't necessarily have to list out the strategies, because once you do that, you're basically giving out work for free. So you want to hold this close to your chest. These are the potential strategies. What I've found in my time is by the time you carry out this exercise and you emphasize on the business impact, the next thing most clients will turn around and say to you is, Shola, what do we do? What can we do to close this gap? And that is basically your cue. And what your answer will be is something we could look into. There are several things we could implement. Let's do this as a project. And that's your consulting brief. In other cases, it may well be the client turns around and says, no, it's too big an assignment for just yourself. Let's find someone else to join you. I remember a case in point, UBA, one of the largest financial institutions in Africa. We identified a potential to work with them on a particular assignment. And they turned around and said, well, thank you for bringing this up. We would give you the contract in addition to someone else, because it's just too big an assignment for just one company to perform. The key thing I'm driving out here is this. You've got to be proactive in sourcing out where the opportunities are. Gone are the days when you sit back and assignment falls on your lap. It's over. There's just too many competition out there, too many competitive forces out there. And so you got to create the opportunities. You got to create the job. And the capability gap assessment is a very good tool. You could start by offering it as a free assessment to your clients to assess the capability gap. And if the gaps are very high, it's a cause for concern and it's an alarm bell. Alarm bells should be ringing in that organization if their capability gaps are quite high. Now, how do you measure capability gaps? There are several yardsticks of measuring capability gaps. Number one, you use the industry standard. There could be an industry standard. And then so you're measuring where your client is vis-a-vis the industry standard. Where industry standards do not exist, you could set the capability gap or the required capability based on the ambitions of the company. It could be standards set for them to compete against or to compete to or to attain to. So there are two instances where there is an industry standard, you have your benchmark by which you set your capability goals or your capability and then carry out your capability gap assessment. Where there are no such benchmarks, it could be your benchmark or your capability assessment could be basically where does your client want to go. Okay, and you can look at comparatives as well. You have a school and you are aiming to achieve a certain standard. And so you could set the benchmark or you could follow the conventional standard, good practice standard in your industry, or you could set yourself attainable goals. So basically that's the capability gap assessment. Is not just to identify gaps, but much more to find ways of closing those gaps. Okay, thank you very much. I would encourage you to stay back and watch the next set of videos covering other consulting tools. Thank you very much. It's Shola Jani, School of Consulting. Bye-bye for now.